My name is Claire Whitman, and I was 29 years old when I returned to the one place I swore I wouldn't, my parents' house. It was supposed to be temporary, just a pause. A few weeks until I get back on my feet. I didn't even unpack all my boxes, just shoved them against the peeling wall of the guest room beside the closet that still smelled like fake pine and dusty Christmas ribbons. The truth was, I had nowhere else to go. I had just been laid off from a nonprofit tech firm in Albany. They said it was budget cuts, but that didn't make it any easier. I'd spent 3 years helping community centers digitize their services, scheduling virtual access for seniors, even helping veterans file benefits online. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. It felt like I mattered. When that job disappeared, so did my health insurance, my financial cushion, and eventually my rent-controlled apartment. The market was brutal. I applied to everything corporate remote, part-time internships even. Nothing stuck. I picked up freelance gigs here and there, small web design jobs, tech support for local businesses. It helped, but it wasn't enough. So I packed my hatchback, swallowed what was left of my pride, and drove back to the quiet cul-de-sac where I grew up. Dad Harold greeted me like I was a UPS package, polite, emotionless brief. He gave me a nod and a half-hearted pat on the back. Mom Susan managed a tight-lipped smile and a list of broken household things: the thermostat, the Wi-Fi, the printer. Always the printer. I didn't complain. I fixed what they asked without being asked. Set up filters on their email, rebuilt their router settings, and flagged a suspicious charge on Dad's card before he even knew it existed. I even reorganized their budgeting app and automated their bill payments. Quietly behind the scenes. Susan wasn't cruel, not in the way people slam doors or scream. No, she was precise. Every morning she'd clean the already clean kitchen like she was erasing me from it. When she passed my door, she lingered just long enough for the silence to sting. She folded laundry like she was snapping something inside of her. My brother Eric came home every couple of weeks. He was 4 years younger, lived in Manhattan, and had some vague finance job in Midtown. Mom adored him. The moment he walked through the door, she lit up. "There's my star," she'd say. "You've lost weight." Meanwhile, I was usually in the corner fixing the router. Again. They never said it outright, but I could feel it. Like steam building under a pot lid, I was tolerated, not welcomed. Not really. One night, after helping them troubleshoot the Wi-Fi again, I sat on the edge of that stiff twin bed, staring at the wall like it owed me answers. I wondered if they even saw me anymore. I wasn't their daughter. I was an obligation, a reminder of something they didn't want to deal with. But what none of them realized, what not even I fully understood at the time, was that this house, their systems, their finances, their safety net, all of it was running because of me, because I kept it together behind the scenes. And one day I'd walk away. And when I did, everything they'd taken for granted would start to fall apart. But they'd never see it coming. It was a Sunday, one of those forced family days Susan still tried to make happen, even though none of us wanted to be there. She made baked ziti, Eric's favorite, not mine. She used to make my favorite 2-roast chicken with lemon and rosemary, but that recipe hadn't seen daylight since before I moved back. Eric showed up late wearing a pressed blue shirt and "Fine," he said, feigning modesty. "I'm trying to decide if I want to stick with the portfolio I'm managing or shift to international markets. The euro's been acting weird." I tuned out, scooping some ziti onto my plate. I knew what was coming. Susan's attention would wander, eventually landing on me, like a flashlight flickering across a shadow in the corner. Sure enough, her tone changed. Light casual, too casual. Claire, have you been applying to any real jobs lately? I didn't answer at first. My fork hovered midair. I had told her just yesterday 2 interviews lined up one second round. I had even let her read a cover letter I was proud of, but none of that mattered now. Not with Eric here. Before I could speak, Eric jumped in eyes, never leaving his plate. At some point, he said, voice steady, it stops being bad luck and starts being bad choices. The air in the room shifted. Something in me cracked. Not loudly, just a hairline fracture deep and quiet. I finished chewing and stood up carrying my plate to the kitchen. I stood with my back to them, eating the rest at the counter. I heard them laugh at something. Probably not about me, but who could tell? And then it came. Snippets. Whispered but sharp. She needs to grow up. We can't cuddle her forever. It's embarrassing. I didn't cry. Not there, not then. I rinsed the plate and left it in the drying rack beside the cracked one still untouched. That night, I lay in bed, eyes open, watching the ceiling change color as headlights passed outside. My mind was racing, but I couldn't grab hold of a single thought. The cracked plate was still in the sink. It would stay there until I moved it. No one else would. The next morning, Susan came into the sunroom where I was hunched over my laptop, polishing a spring website redesign for a local bakery. I was adjusting the mobile carousel for their new seasonal menu when I heard the sound heels on hardwood, sharp, determined. She didn't knock. She never did. I need to talk to you, she said, arms folded, her tone flat. Okay, I said, without turning from the screen. You need to start paying rent. It wasn't the first time she'd brought it up, usually sandwiched between critiques about how I loaded the dishwasher or left lights on. So I said what I always did. I will. I told you once this project wraps, I'll send something. They're paying me next week. She tilted her head. I'm not talking about someday. I mean now. Today. I paused, slowly turning in my chair. You want me to write you a check with money I haven't even received yet? Susan didn't flinch. Number, I want you to grow up. Then she said it. You're just a leech, Claire, living off us. And it's gone on long enough. I sat still. The word hit harder than I thought it would. Leech. She said it like she meant it. Like it was an identity, not a situation. Before I could say anything, she turned and left the room. Moments later, I heard the scrape of something heavy being dragged down the hall. She returned with a navy blue duffel bag, the one I used in college. She dropped it at my feet. Go leech somewhere else. I looked down at the bag. My name was still stitched on it in blocky thread. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I zipped it open, slid in my laptop, and charger tucked my toothbrush into the side pocket and stood up. The sky outside looked too blue. The driveway is too clean. It all felt fake. I walked out without a goodbye. No one followed. No one watched. But as I sat behind the wheel of my car, hands shaking, one thought echoed louder than the rest. They didn't just push me out. They erased me. I didn't have a plan. Just a duffel bag, a laptop, and a hole in my chest that wasn't there yesterday. The first night I stayed with Lucas, an old college friend who still called me Whitman like we were working on a group project again. He didn't ask for details, just offered the pull-out couch and a clean pair of socks. No questions, no pity, just space to breathe. After a few days, I moved in with Ava, my ex-girlfriend. We hadn't spoken in months. The last message between us was left unread. But when I texted her, her reply came in one word: "Kami." Her place was small, warm, and filled with quiet. She still made tea before asking how I was. We didn't talk much about what had happened. Some truths don't need to be spoken right away. The silence wasn't empty here. It was safe. While Ava worked late shifts at a community health clinic, I filled the silence with freelance jobs, one after another. Fixing broken sites, updating e-commerce plugins, resetting passwords for florists, cafes, and dog groomers. It wasn't stable, but it was mine. Each job meant I didn't have to hear Susan's voice in my head calling me a leech. Then, out of nowhere, a message landed in my LinkedIn inbox. A recruiter from a nonprofit startup in Seattle had stumbled across a portfolio site I'd built for a local art professor last year. They were hiring remote full-time benefits. My hands trembled as I clicked. Reply. 2 interviews and a virtual whiteboard test later, I got the offer. I was sitting at Ava's kitchen table in a blazer over sweatpants when I opened the acceptance email. No one clapped. No one celebrated. But I smiled for the first time in weeks. With my first paycheck, I signed a lease on a tiny studio apartment in downtown Troy, creaky floors humming fridge sunlight that slanted through the window at just the right angle. The kind of place where everything inside belonged to me, even the chipped mug I sipped coffee from in the morning. The first night alone, I ate Thai takeout on the floor. My phone was at 47%, my bank account was fragile, but the air tasted different. No lectures, no silence sharpened like a knife. Just peace. 3 weeks passed like a slow exhale. I was finishing a grant dashboard one afternoon, sipping watered-down coffee from my chipped mug when my phone buzzed. Missed call Harold Whitman. I stared at it. That name hadn't lit up my screen since the day I left. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Same name. Then a text. Claire, why is the bank account frozen? My stomach dropped. And then I remembered months ago, before the word leech sliced my name in half, Dad had asked me to make things easier. I'd set up their mobile banking linked utilities, created logins, and backup security questions. I was their secondary administrator, just to help, never to touch the money. They never removed me. Not when I left. Not even after they kicked me out. Too many failed logins. Suspicious activity. Something must have triggered a lockout. And now, they needed me. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen. Then I typed, "Ask the leech." No emojis, no explanation. Just that. It only took an hour. 5 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 1 text from Susan. "This isn't funny, Claire. Call your father back. We can't pay the credit card." "Are you doing this after everything we've done for you?" I didn't reply. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. But for the first time, I had leverage. And I wasn't going to give it away just because someone else suddenly remembered I existed. That Thursday, I heard a knock at the door. My building has this echo, slow, hesitant footsteps bounce off the hallway walls when someone waits too long outside. I peeked through the peephole. Susan. Purse clutched tight like a life vest. Harold beside her wearing a jacket too thin for the chill and a crooked tie like he dressed in the dark. I opened the door just enough. "If you're here to yell," I said, "don't." They didn't. They stepped inside, scanning the apartment like it was an exhibit in a life they didn't recognize. It was small, yes, but it was clean, and it was mine. No one spoke for a full minute. Then Susan cleared her throat. Her voice softer than I remembered, barely carried across the space between us. "We need your help." 3 weeks ago, this same woman had called me a leech and dropped my duffel bag at my feet like garbage on the curb. Now she stood in the center of my studio apartment, careful not to touch anything, eyes scanning the room like it might vanish if she blinked. Harold was the first to speak, stumbling over his words. "It's the bank," he muttered. "The accounts. The taxes." Eric tried to help, but I knew. I'd already seen the email alerts piling up. Too many failed logins, locked profiles, frozen cards. I just hadn't lifted a finger. Susan added quietly, "We missed the mortgage payment. There are late fees." Her face had lost that rigid sharpness. She didn't look angry now. Just tired. Thin in a way that went beyond weight. "That sounds awful," I said. "Not cruel, just even. You must feel stuck." She nodded slowly, then barely above a whisper, "I'm sorry." 2 words. No lecture. No qualifiers. No defensive tones or biting sarcasm. Just, "Sorry." Harold echoed her, though slower. We didn't realize how much you were doing. I believed them. Sort of. I think they didn't want to realize. There's a difference. They asked if I would come back, help reset things, fix the errors, and walk them through the systems. Said they'd pay me. Said it would be different. I looked at them both clutching their coats like they might be asked to leave at any moment. I'll help, I said. But I'm not coming back. We sat at my desk, a $50 fold-out from a clearance warehouse. Harold squinted at the monitor, while Susan stood behind me, arms crossed but silent. I walked them through everything. Reset logins, verified IDs with backup codes I'd set up months ago, relinked the tax software, called tech support twice, once to verify two-factor authentication. They'd missed once to unfreeze their HSA that Eric had accidentally flagged for fraud. Every few minutes, Harold would mutter, "This is ridiculous," as if the systems themselves were mocking him. But he answered every security question I asked, even the ones I knew annoyed him. His first car, his mother's maiden name, the street he grew up on. Susan said almost nothing. But once, while waiting for a call to connect, she asked quietly, "Do you think Eric meant to, make it worse?" I didn't answer. When it was done, I leaned back, exhaled. "I'll send you a step-by-step document," I said. "After that, I'm out." Susan frowned. "Out. No more admin access. No more late-night calls. No more Claire, the Wi-Fi is down. You'll have to figure it out yourselves or ask someone else. Maybe Eric." Harold didn't argue, just nodded slowly, like he knew he couldn't push. They gathered their things. Neither reached for a hug. I didn't offer one. When the door closed behind them, the room felt heavier for a moment, then lighter. I turned to my screen, opened my Google Drive, and found the folder titled, "Banking for Mom and Dad. Do not delete." I hovered my mouse for a second, then clicked delete. Confirm yes? Gone. No pop-up asked me if I was sure, and I didn't need it to. For the next few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe they finally respected the boundary. Maybe this was it. A clean end. But families never really let go. They just rewrite the story. It started with a Facebook message from Aunt Cheryl. "Hey, sweetie. Heard you moved out on your own. That's so great. Your mom said you've been distant lately. Just wanted to check in everything okay." Then a screenshot from my cousin Trevor. A group chat. Extended family. In it, Susan had typed, "Claire's changed ever since she got that new job. She's been cold distant. I don't even recognize her anymore." All I did was ask for help and she acted like I betrayed her. I stared at the message for a long time. My hands went cold. Then Eric emailed me. 5 paragraphs. "Look, I know there's been tension, but Mom and Dad aren't perfect. Maybe instead of blaming them, you could try being more understanding. You had a rough patch, we all do. Doesn't mean the world's out to get you. Let's talk soon." Maybe coffee, I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about one fight, or one word, or one dinner. It was about all the quiet moments where I had been invisible until they needed me. A month later, I left New York. The nonprofit I worked for offered a relocation bonus to join their new West Coast branch. I didn't hesitate. I signed the papers the same day, boxed up my life that weekend, and flew to Portland with nothing but 2 suitcases and a long, aching breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Portland felt like peace, like air that didn't sting. My new apartment was tiny, barely more than a box, but it had a wide window that caught the afternoon light just right. No one in the building knew my last name. No one looked at me like I was unfinished. I joined a local tech meetup, made friends who laughed without checking to see who was listening. Once a week, I volunteered at a senior center, teaching older folks how to use email reset passwords and protect themselves from phishing scams. One afternoon, I sat beside a woman named Marlene. She wore giant reading glasses and a lavender sweater. I was helping her recover her Medicare login when she smiled shyly and said, "You're so patient." I laughed, soft and surprised. Patience is all I've ever had. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new email. Subject update. Hi, Mom and Dad. Just wanted to let you know I'll be relocating to Portland for work. I've removed myself from all financial systems and accounts. I won't be available for tech help going forward. I hope this new chapter gives us all some peace. Claire, no reply. Not even a period. But for the first time, that silence didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a closed door. Finally, I closed my laptop and sat quietly in the amber light of my apartment. For once, there was no tension waiting for me in the next room, no sarcastic voice behind a closed door, no pressure to prove my worth in tasks that went unseen. I had started writing again. Nothing big, just notes, memories, thoughts I didn't want to lose. That night, I opened a fresh document. The cursor blinked at me like a heartbeat. I typed one line: I don't need an apology. I just wonder if I disappeared. Would anyone have noticed I was the one keeping everything together? Then I leaned back and let the silence settle in, not like a storm cloud, but like a soft blanket. I wasn't a leech. I had never been. I was the backbone, the quiet fixer, the last thread holding the quilt of that house in place. They didn't know how much I did until I stopped doing it. Now they'd have to figure it out on their own. And me, I was finally building something for myself, slowly, imperfectly, but fully mine. Claire Whitman's journey began in the quiet shadows of her parents' home, tucked away in a guest room that held more ghosts than comfort. Branded a leech by the very family she supported in silence, Claire endured the cold sharpness of being both relied upon and resented. Her unseen labor, the tech fix's financial organization, small, quiet gestures, had been the unseen thread that kept their household from unraveling. But it wasn't until her mother's biting words forced her out that she realized she'd been holding together a system that didn't value her until it broke. From sleeping on couches to rebuilding her freelance career, Claire found herself again through the small, sturdy victories of independence. A job offer changed her trajectory, but it was the quiet affirmation of being needed, not used, that restored her. When her family came crawling back, she didn't slam the door, but she didn't reopen it either. She offered help, drew a boundary, and walked away stronger. Portland became her new beginning. No legacy expectations. No silence laced with judgment. Just her name on the lease, her voice in the room. The story ends not with revenge, but with liberation. Not with a grand apology, but with a quiet reclamation of self. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't proving your worth. It's refusing to keep proving it to people who never bothered to see it in the first place. And in that refusal, Claire didn't just walk away from the wreckage, she walked into her own life,